Hi, everyone. Welcome to Prevention Education, the podcast that teaches you everything about prevention. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. Everyone, welcome back to another Prevention Education episode. As always, I am your host, Kylie. And kind of like I mentioned last episode, we are going to be talking about how to just start a conversation with youth who are different ages. And so in this episode, once again, it's just going to be general substance use conversations. But we are going to talk about pre-K to second grade and then third grade to fifth grade. So just to give you a little bit heads up of what exactly this episode will have, we're going to be talking about goals to have during the conversation, how you can start the conversation, so what you can say to kind of get that conversation rolling, just some tips that you can keep in mind while having the conversations, and then I'll try to have like a remember portion as well. So the goal of this series is to just really make sure that our listeners know how important it is to start conversations about substances with youth. It's just, unfortunately, it's the world that we live in where we need to make them aware of things pretty young so that they can know to say no and that they can make healthy decisions for themselves, and also be very informed while they make these decisions. So we will just kind of jump into it. And we're going to start, like I said, with pre-K to second grade. So this age group, obviously, like you can't really use very concrete words and language. They're still trying to develop what they are saying and what they're thinking, and their minds are just so full of wonder, and they're just not too sure about the world around them because they're still just exploring everything around them. So the goals for talking to pre-K to second graders about substances is to just set a solid foundation for future conversations. You just want to make sure that they know that you're there for them, that you really want them to live a healthy life, and that you are just kind of showing them um, what you kind of want their future to look like while being very supportive of what they want their future to look like as well. But with setting a solid foundation, that another goal that comes with that is encouraging healthy habits and behaviors. And at this age, like it might even look like, eating your broccoli and eating your fruits and veggies so that you have the energy to play on the playground later, or um, you know, not watching TV, but reading a book instead so that you can dive into the world of imagination instead of things that are already created for you and just getting lost in that world. So just really making sure that you're encouraging healthy habits, maybe not so much in the substance use world, but in just the world around them. And then a third goal is you show them that you're trustworthy and you can help them to cope with stress and anger and other feelings. And just also as a kind of caution, they won't know the word cope. They won't know like big words that we use in the prevention world. So make sure that you are bringing it down to their level. And so showing them that you care and maybe just saying like, I know that there are some big emotions that we might have, and there's also a lot of big choices that we're going to make, and you just want them to make sure that they feel safe with you and that they can trust you when they have questions or kind of ideas about what's going on. So those are the three goals. So just to recap, set a solid foundation for future conversations, encourage healthy habits and behaviors, and then show them that you are a trustworthy source and that you can help them to cope with stress, anger, and other feelings. So all the emotions, really. And so you might think like, Kylie, how do I just start this conversation? And that is a great question. So when you're starting the conversation, you want to not be super aggressive with it and super blunt. You want it to kind of flow naturally. So maybe you can just ask them, like, hey, who are some people that you trust? And if they say, well, I don't know, you can say, like, oh, do you trust mom? Do you trust dad? Do you trust grandma? Do you trust a random person on this? Do you trust a stranger? And just like give them examples, and maybe they can say yes and no to whatever people that you're throwing out there. Um, and that can get it going. You can also say, what are some really yummy things that you like? And then they can go from there. Or you can also say the complete opposite and say, what are some yucky things that you like? And you can go from there. Um, and then you can also say, like, when is it okay to share? And they might say, like, when I'm playing with my toys, or, when I have extra snacks. And that question kind of gets them into thinking, like, is it okay to share my sandwich if I took a bite of it? Probably not. So down the line, they might think, like, oh, if this is a very big example, but if this person is smoking or vaping and they ask me if I want to, well, their germs are kind of on that. And I just don't think that we should share that because that's yours and not mine. So that's kind of where that question's getting at. And then another question that you can start with is, should you ask for help sometimes and when? And once again, their little minds are kind of everywhere. They might not just answer these questions for you, but that is why it's just a starter. And so I really encourage you to encourage them in these conversations. So you can say, um, should you ask for help when uh, someone is making you really mad? Or should you ask for help when someone offers you something that you might think is yucky, and just kind of stuff like that, and just really make sure that you are asking them questions that they can answer, because a pre-K to second grader might not say, yeah, I should ask for help when someone offers me a substance that I don't like and I'm not sure what to do. They're not going to say that, obviously. So you just want to make sure that you are catering to them and really bringing it down to their level. Um, Now we're going to dive into 4 tips. So the first tip is keep substances out of reach for children. And substances meaning marijuana, alcohol, medications, nicotine, all of that. Just keep it out of reach with this pre-K to second grade age, they are, like I said, very curious, full of wonder, and they're going to grab a lot of things and they might not know what they're grabbing. And they might experiment, they might give it a drink because they, think it looks yummy or it looks like Coke. But it's not. Another tip that I have for you guys is just establish healthy relationships at home that are built on trust. So you want your child to trust you, trust another adult in the house if there is one, trust their siblings, um, trust grandparents. You just want them to make sure that they have caring adults that they know trust them with their choices and that they also trust to tell things to. Um, and then the third tip is just find teachable moments throughout the day where you can just start a natural conversation. They might be a little skeptical if you're just randomly like, hey, who's some people you trust? But if you see them like holding their teddy bear and they're like, you can mention like, "Oh, do you trust your teddy bear? Do you know what trust means?" And start the conversation that way. So just find little things that they're already doing and just kind of build on that. And then the fourth tip I have for you guys today is always model healthy behaviors. Kids are always watching and they're modeling what you are doing. And so you want to make sure that you are doing what you think they should do. So even if you have a little teeny bopper running around your house, they notice everything you do. So um, whether you pick up a cup and then they pick up the cup after you because they're curious about what you're doing. Or if it's something extreme like you are vaping, they might pick up that vape too and try it as well. So just make sure that you are modeling healthy behaviors that they can follow in the future. And the last thing I have for you guys is my remember. So just remember that at this age, pre-K to second grade, it's not so much about talking about substances directly, but it's establishing a bond for the future conversations. So you most likely will not um, say, don't do drugs. Instead, you're just building that relationship. You're getting them to trust you. You just want them to come to you if they have any questions, and it will just help for the future to start the conversation this young. So just remember, you're not going to bring up substances directly, and that's totally okay. You just want to make sure that you have that bond so that they can come to you for anything in the future and that you can just have that open dialogue with them about substances in the future, too. So, with all of that, I'm actually just going to leave this episode at pre-K to second grade. And next week, we will be talking about third grade to fifth grade and all the goals, conversation starters, tips, what to remember with all of that. I was a little too ambitious with how much we would get through in this episode. So I apologize for that. But I really hope that you guys learned something today. And if you guys have pre-K to second grade kiddos in your life, just really start that conversation. And I really hope that some of these tips could help you out. Yeah, and if you don't have any pre-K to second grade kids in your life, that is totally fine and understandable. I really encourage you to maybe send this episode to someone who does have that age of children in their lives so that they can maybe know to start the conversation now. But yeah, thank you guys for all of your support. Unfortunately, we do not have a shout out this week. So if you are listening, please email me. My email is kylie.lindberger@pfh.org, and I would love to give you a shout out. So yeah, thank you guys so much again for tuning in, and we hope to talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into our podcast. Remember to follow us on social media at PFH Prevention. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Spotify, and more podcasting platforms. And make sure to email us at moprevention@pfh.org with any questions, and feel free to call us at 660-627-7404. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.